What's going on, everyone? This is Matt, Squeaky Clean Air. Today we're going to talk about check valves, all about check valves. What are check valves? Some of the common issues with check valves and air suspension. I think it's probably the most issues that people have when it comes to air suspension is the check valve failure. And we're specifically talking about the check valve of the actual compressor. So the ladder lines on the Viair compressors or other style of brand compressors, at the end of the ladder lines, there's a check valve. This is what we're going to focus on specifically. And it actually becomes a huge issue for countries like Canada, especially the colder parts of Canada, like the Canada western parts of Canada, where we have pretty solid winters. Same with Alberta, obviously, in Saskatchewan, right? Where actually fluid would freeze, right, when we're getting to negative temperatures. So that's when people who are, driving their vehicles or having air suspension vehicles in the winter will experience a lot of these issues. In addition to obviously frozen compressor messages with the 3P systems or anything like that. But primarily, we're going to focus today on check valves. Okay, well, what is a check valve to begin with? Let's do the Wikipedia definition. Check valves are two-port valves, meaning they have two openings in the body. One for fluid to enter, the other fluid to leave. Could be same thing as for air as well. There are various types of check valves used in a wide variety of applications. Check valves are often part of common household items, although they are available in a wide range of sizes and costs. Check valves generally are very small, simple, and inexpensive. Check valves work automatically, and most are not controlled by a person or any external control. Accordingly, most do not have any valve handle or stem. The bodies, external shelves of most check valves are made of plastic or metal. Could also be made from copper or brass. An important concept, this is the killer right here, guys. An important concept in check valves is the cracking pressure, okay, which is the minimum differential upstream pressure between the inlet and outlet at which the valve will operate. Typically, the check valve is designed for and can therefore be specified for a specific cracking pressure. Okay, so a check valve is basically a non-return valve, a one-way valve. Okay, retention valve, foot valve, or a one-way valve is a valve that normally allows fluid, liquid or gas, to flow through it in only one direction. What does that mean? Okay, well, let's have a look at air valves. All right, let's do an image search. These are some of the check valves that you guys are more familiar with. Okay, and what happens? Okay, as you guys can see, air compressor check valves. So common for Viair air compressors or any kind of compressors is the head. You have a piston body in here that produces and moves, and that's what creates air, and then that's what gets pumped into your tank. At the end of the ladder line is the check valve. What were check valves? Well, check valves, we just said a second ago, is they allow one-way operation, which means that the air is going to be created in the cylinder over here or pushed. The piston is going to create an air vortex. That air later is going to go through, and that's how you're going to pump up your tank. Now, the problem is that if you do not have a check valve or a way to keep the pressure inside of the tank, whatever you just pumped in there, once this stops working, will go all the way back and leak. Okay? So that's one of the reasons why there's check valves at the end of the compressor ladder lines, which I'm going to show you guys a specific one when I go into the garage in a minute. And the reason why they put check valves at the ends of the compressors is, one, to retain the air inside the tank so it doesn't leak overnight, and also to prevent the air to backflow back through the head, as Vire compressors are known to leak through the heads, in order to prevent your tanks depleting overnight. We would be counterproductive to create the vortex, create the air, use this air pump, which is aka the compressor, create the air to go all the way through into the tank just to be able to be depleted as soon as you pumped it out. Hence why there's check valves. Now, a check valve, let's have a look if they have a diagram here. Okay, so inside of the actual check valve body, all right, is a little spring and a valve disc. So what happens is when the air gets pumped through the check valve, it can go one way, meaning there, imagine the compressor over here and the compressor generating the vortex and the air, and that air is pushed through into the actual tank, but it can only go one direction. You don't want the air to go in and go right out. You want the air to go in and get prevented from going back in, hence why you have the valve disc. So the pressure or the vortex of the compressor creates enough of a force to push the air into the tank, but not for it to leak back. Okay? Now here's where we run into a big problem. Say there's gunk or anything stuck on this little plunger. Okay? When this doesn't fully close, any air that could be generated or kept inside the tank, imagine the tank is on this side, right? That air will just flow right back very, very slowly and leak because this is not closely, tightly shut, which is where a lot of your issues come from when you are driving in the winter. So imagine there's fluid buildup over here, okay? And this is common, for example, in Canada, where you're going to go from like +2. For example, today is what, Thursday, January 13th, 2022, right? Today, the whole day was +2. But overnight, the temperature is going to go to -9. So just imagine any fluid that's in here, okay? Residual fluid, and that also becomes a huge issue if you guys don't purge your tanks on a regular basis. You know, even if you got water traps, even if you're running, airline antifreeze and any of that crap, if you're going to have any kind of water that's going to get left over here and it's going to freeze overnight, that plunger is going to get stuck open. Your tanks are going to leak. What's going to happen is when you're going to turn on your car with -9 degree temperature in the morning, all that air that you would have built up the night before is going to be completely depleted, which means now your check valve is going to be frozen. It's going to drive your compressor very, 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 very hot. So it's going to start running a lot harder than it should, because now most likely your whole tank is depleted. So now your compressor is going to have to run for at least 5 to 10 minutes to build up that pressure. The funny thing is if this is stuck shut because of the fact, or stuck open because of the fact that there's ice preventing it from closing, because it's that ice or that water that was there that now it's frozen is stuck through, you're going to drive that compressor a lot harder, because whatever it pumps in is going to pump all the way back, meaning you will never be able to build up pressures. Why check valves at the ends of compressors are so important. That is probably the biggest wear and tear item on any kind of a compressor. And that's one of the reasons why I don't recommend people from buying used compressors, because you don't know the condition of the valve. If you do end up buying used compressors, probably the first thing you need to account for is replacing the check valves at the end of ladder lines. So hopefully I didn't confuse you guys much, but it's very important to purge your system, especially when you're running with air suspension systems, so you don't have fluid buildup, just for this particular reason. That fluid is going to freeze, and it's going to freeze your check valve open. Right? And you don't want that, because you want to be able to use the compressor to push the air through and not have it go all the way back. So basically it's counterproductive if these check valves fail, right? They're stuck open. So you want to avoid having fluid in there so it doesn't freeze, right? That will drive your compressor a lot harder. When your compressor runs a lot harder, it's going to burn out the motors, it's going to pop a fuse, and it's just going to decrease the lifespan of your compressors, right? So that's one problem. Also, not necessarily freezing, if you don't purge your tank on a regular basis, and we're going to do a whole separate video in regards to purging your air suspension system when I get a chance right now in the near future. But even if there's fluid in here and it's not frozen, as the fluid, circulates through your air system, it's going to pick up a whole bunch of different gunk that gets built up and stuff like that. And that gunk can also force your check valve to get stuck open, which is probably one of the most common issues, again, that your compressor keeps pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping and running and running and running, and you never see an increase of pressure inside of your tank. It's because these puppies or these check valves are stuck. So a little bit of an intro in regards to check valves and how they work, the little plunger inside there that can potentially get stuck, and it causes your compressor to keep pumping without the pressure being built up in the tank. But now what we're going to do, we're going to go in the garage. I'm going to actually take a ladder line that I removed from a compressor, and I'm going to actually show you guys the different types of check valves that you might actually encounter with air suspension. We're going to start with the Viair one first. All right, guys, some common check valves. Actually, let me get the Viair one, and I'll be able to demonstrate to you guys a lot of line with the check valves. So this is what you guys are used to, right? This is at the end of the compressor head, obviously, and then over here is the check valve, the good old check valve. And inside there, as you guys can see, let's see if I can zoom into that. There's a little plunger, and that's what prevents the operation of the air of going one way from the head through the check valve into the tank, right? So this is it. These are some of the common ones. This is an SMC one. These are supposed to be a little bit more robust. Same idea. If you look inside, there's a small little plunger. There's a direction on flow and stuff like that. So you know what? It doesn't matter what check valve you use. Even the block ones that looks like little blocks that SMC makes. These are SMC Japan check valves. These are slightly a little bit different than the other ones. It doesn't matter. One is not better than the other. You know what? They all fail the same way, and they all fail because of the fact that they do get stuck inside because of gunk, and they do get stuck because of them being frozen. And this thing is having a little bit of a hard time. But let me show you guys probably with a better view. So see inside here. There's a plunger. Come on, let me get rid of this. Let me zoom in. There you go. There's a little plunger. And then when you press on it, see, it goes in and out. So imagine there's a little bit of water in there and it gets frozen, and this is kept open. When this is kept open, see it? The air is going back. The air is going back. So the way these work is burst pressure, or the pressure of the compressor, pushes the air through, and then once it stops pumping, bang, it closes. Right? What happens is, obviously, you can't go from the other side, right? So imagine the tank being at the other side, and hence you have an arrow to show the direction of the air going through, and that's what prevents the air from leaking out of your tank. Obviously, provided your other fittings are not leaking and your connections are all good, and you don't have leaks elsewhere. But this is the most common form of leaks through the compressor heads and check valves getting stuck. That's one of the reasons why, again, I repeat this, your compressor runs for an extended period of time, and then you're checking out your 3P controller or any of the other digital controllers, and you're like, what the hell? The compressors are running, but it doesn't seem like the compressors are actually building up any of the air inside the tank. Well, of course, because if this is stuck, whatever you're pushing through is coming right back out through your compressor head. You know what I mean? It's not even building up any pressure. The whole idea is for it to push it through,
keep driving your compressor until it reaches the maximum pressure of the pressure switch, whatever you set it up to as on your 3P or whatever you have depending on your air suspension setup. And once it reaches it, it turns off the compressor. There is no more air going through or burst air going through the compressor head. Bang, this thing is shut. Right? So that's all there is to it. Check valves. You know, let me see if I can zoom in from the other side. There's a little spring in there, as you guys can see. With age, obviously, these springs will rust and will get stuck as well. You know what I mean? There's a little plunger, spring-based plunger. So hopefully this helps. If your compressors are running on a regular basis without stopping and it's not building up any pressure inside of your tank, this little puppy is basically stuck. Need to replace your check valves. These are available from Air. Any of the shops can get them for you that are air suspension shops. That's probably the first thing I would check, especially if you've had a compressor for 2 years, 3 years, or even longer. Or that's the first thing you should replace right off the bat when you buy a used compressor, is getting new check valves. So factor that in. Sometimes, you know, when you can get a used compressor for $100 less, it might not be worth it, considering if you're going to spend another $100 to get 2 new check valves. So that's it. That's all there is to it. Hope this helps. And if you guys have any other questions, leave comments on the bottom of the video, and I'll try to share a lot more information with you guys as I come up with ideas on how we should do air suspension videos. Peace out.